Perfect. Well, I appreciate you hopping on this call, Ryan. I just want to start off here. Would you mind just kind of walking me through your resume, your experience at Alta, and some other places that you've worked?
Sure. Yeah, my most recent experience has been with Alta Resources. Again, they're a call center in Neenah, Wisconsin. Pretty much, they call themselves a third party customer service outsourcer. So, pretty much, if there's companies who need to have like customer service but don't want to do it in house, they pretty much outsource it to someone like Alta, who staffs the department to take calls as if they're that company. Um, and so I was doing that since 2016, May of 2016, up until this past February. And when I was there, the client that we took calls for, it was a window and door company. Um, so when I started, I'm an inbound customer service rep. So pretty much my whole day is taking calls, and it's anything from, um, hey, can you describe the features, or compare and contrast different products because we're thinking of buying something, to, hey, I already have one of your products. This broke. How do I fix it? Um, can you send me this part? Is it covered under warranty? That kind of stuff. Um, and over the years, I always the main job was always taking the calls, but over time I got more and more responsibility. So while my job title stayed the same, I did take on extra responsibility, such as uh, I was one of the main people involved with the team's written response group. So that's if customers contact us through email or chat. I would one of the I would say one of the there wasn't like a leader of the written response group, but I was probably one of the longest tenured uh, uh, people who worked in that group. I even did later on. I even did the trainings for the chat team. Um, and then I was on the callback team, so I made outbound calls. I was trained in specialty product lines. That the company wanted more of a kind of a white glove service for. And again, as I said, I towards the end of my time there, I did a lot of trainings, and within I think the year before I left, or maybe it was 2 years, because of kind of how I excelled with the other roles, there was a short term program that started up within Alta that it was another team that one of their products had a recall, and they needed a kind of a team put together kind of just to handle those recall calls. And so I was one of four people who was chosen to be essentially manage that team for the several months it took to the end of its life, essentially. Um, and then after that ended, I just went back to my normal role. Again, it's split between inbound calls, outbound calls, um, again, email, chat, um, and one thing I forgot to bring up is I took supervisor calls, so escalation calls.
Hmm.
So I wasn't a manager or a supervisor like on the team, but if someone called and said, "Hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I want to talk to your supervisor," I was one of the guys that got those calls. So I got the fun job of de-escalating customers every so often. But yeah, that's my run through of my time with Alta. And then I would say pretty much before Alta, I lived in the West Bend area, and pretty much I was in manufacturing. And uh, that was another job. It was Serigraph in West Bend. And that's the job that I started, um, as an inspector, parts coming off the line, and then kind of worked my way up to start doing quality checks. And then I'm an actually machine operator towards my time there. I like that job quite a bit. And I left that job because my wife had found work up in Nina, and I essentially followed her up here to find work, and that's how I came across Alta.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, I appreciate that. My next question is, I know it's a tougher question to ask because I know it depends on the day and the time of the month, but on average, how many inbound calls do you think you were taking on a given day?
I would say on my team, I want to preface it by saying at Alta, there's some other teams that take more calls, but because of the window and doors and a lot of them you have to troubleshoot, calls take longer. So I would say started, I was taking between 35. They wanted you off the phone in usually 12 minutes, unless it's like a really bizarre case. So I would say it's around there towards the end of my time there because I was split between duties. I never reached that, but when I first started and all I was doing was calls, probably around 35, 40. Again, depending on the day. If there's a lot of transfers, maybe more. If it's a lot of ones, I'm have to do the whole call from beginning to end, probably the lower end of that spectrum.
Awesome. And how do you think that you would handle being in a really fast-paced environment?
Yeah, I don't think it would be too much of a stretch for me because obviously, if there's more calls, I'm assuming that the length of the calls is much shorter. And I'm very good with going from task to task pretty quickly. So I don't think it'd be that big of a deal for me.
Awesome. What would you say are your biggest strengths?
Sure. I would say my biggest strengths is my attention to detail um, and my thoroughness. I am at my again when I was working at Alta, um, I took pride in not phoning in kind of my job. I didn't just go to work just to come to work and doing the bare minimum just to get paid. Um, my whole goal was essentially I wanted to be the expert, and so that started from uh, I want to know all the products inside and out. So if a customer calls, I can answer any of their questions. Um, and then just being able to that because within the team and we when someone called in we had to record the conversation. I always wanted to be detailed in the notes I left, so if the customer called back that there was never any questions about um, what I did or what I told the customer, and that someone could just look at it and be like, okay, I'll just work from here. Because there are times when you get into a case, someone calls in and they say, hey, talked to three other people before you, and then there's no notes to really go off of, and then you make them more mad because you have to start from scratch with them. But yeah, it's all about being the expert. And um, from a customer service experience, I always felt like customers um, were more composed when they felt they were talking to someone who knew what they were talking about and not someone who obviously sounded like not confident and um, uh, or every time they asked a question, they had to put them on hold to ask someone else the question. Just someone who they know they can know the answer and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And another question I have is, if I were to call one of your past managers over at Alta, what do you think that they would say about you?
I'm pretty confident they would give me high marks when I left. They did not want me to leave. Um, Basically, my attendance is good. Obviously, I they kept giving me more and more responsibility, which is I was a trusted worker at that time. I was given those trainings to do. I would They would say my work ethic is top notch, and I'm as far as just a very knowledgeable member of the team that they trusted with a lot of different tasks. So I definitely think that they would give me high praise.
Awesome, perfect. And then with your time at Alta or any other position that you've had, have you ever had to meet certain metrics when it comes to customer service?
Oh yeah, at Alta, they had quality metrics. We had monthly coaching sessions that went over the numbers pretty much. Um, they were looking at the overall call quality because there was a certain way they wanted you to, you know, answer the phone, how they wanted you to progress through the call, how to end it, and then from there, the length of the call, how long you took after the call before you were available for the next one. Um, and we dealt with selling parts, so there was part accuracy, out of how many of your parts are being returned for them not being correct, um, stuff like that. They had a survey that customers would answer, so there was a call rating that customers would rate you on. I scored high on that. Um, and then there was also we don't do much cross selling, but one of the ones was trying to kind of, if someone bought a part, we tried to um, talk up us setting up a service job. It's an extra cost. Have one of our guys install the part for them. Um, and when I first started, I was pretty terrible at it because it's, again, window and door parts are pretty expensive if it's not under warranty, but service, just like service for anything, it's can be expensive. So it's there's a lot of factors that play into whether or not someone will do it based on financial reasons. But towards the end of my time there, I had a kind of a verbiage down of how I would approach it with the customer, and it raised those. But yeah, there's a bunch of different metrics we had to hit, and we were constantly coached on them once a month.
Perfect. And I just want to touch on as well. I sent you over the schedule, work schedule for this position at Fox Communities. I believe it was Monday, 8 to 5, Monday through Wednesday, 8 to 5, uh, Thursday, Friday, 8 to 6, and then a rotating Saturday schedule of 9 a.m. to noon. Does that schedule fit within yours?
It does definitely.
Okay, perfect. And then I'd also sent you as well, the starting wage for the position is going to be $19.40. I just want to make sure that for you, that'd be a good starting wage to go off of.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, perfect. Um, Another question that I just wanted to ask as well. I haven't talked to you too much about other positions that you have in the loop. Any other interviews go off, but if you interview for this position with Fox Communities and the position meets all your needs, how soon do you think you would be willing to start?
Um, I could start immediately. As I said, I have kind of just a side job I'm doing just to get through to my next permanent job. But pretty much if they said, hey, we want to hire you, I could start whenever they need me to.
Okay, sounds good.